Hey guys, this is Miss Moore. We're going to talk about the male reproductive anatomy. So that's our last unit is the reproductive system. And I decided to start with the male anatomy because it is actually much simpler than the female. All right, so here's some major structures that you're going to need to know, and we're going to talk about the pathway of sperm throughout this whole system right here as we go along. And I'll refer back to this picture as we go along. All right, so we're going to start with the testes, or more commonly called as testicles. We learned these two terms at the beginning of the year. So testes have two functions. They have an exocrine function, which means they produce sperm and send them out to the outside of the body. And then they have an endocrine function, meaning that the production takes place and stays within the body. And so the hormone that they're going to produce ultimately is testosterone. And it's going to start with that gonadotropic releasing hormone that we talked about, that's going to trigger FSH and LH and eventually going to go to its target organ, the testes, and testosterone is going to be produced. Okay, so the first structure we're going to talk about in the testes, and this is actually inside the testicles. This is not on your diagram that I gave y'all, so I just want you to be able to see it. They're called seminiferous tubules. And if you were to cut a testy in half, you would see all these kind of squiggly lines right here. Those are the tubules right there. These are essentially where sperm are made. Okay, it's kind of like a chicken egg, right? So they're going to grow and develop and mature over time and stay housed in here until they're ready to be sent out. So like I said, those guys are the sperm forming factories. And you can't see this on the diagram I gave you. The next structure, they're not really in the testes. It's on the testicle. It's called the epididymis, and it has three major anatomical parts here. It has a head, a body, and a tail. And you can see here that the tail is going to connect to this structure right here called the ductus deferens. It's more commonly called the vas deferens. And that's where, if you've ever heard of a vasectomy, this is what gets snipped right here to make sure sperm does not travel from the seminiferous tubules through the epididymis and up through the ductus deferens. It can't even travel up there at that point from here. So yeah, like I said, it's going to store sperm until it's mature. So it's going to be housed right here. So it's made in the seminiferous tubules, but it's going to be housed right in here until it's ready. Okay, so after about 20 days, it's going to be ready to be sent out from the seminiferous tubules. I cannot talk, I apologize. Up into the epididymis and then up through the ductus deferens eventually after 20 days. Here's your picture that I gave you in class. I took a picture of it. I actually posted this on my Facebook page and deleted it really quick so I can get it on my computer. So here's some major structures. It's very similar to that first picture I showed you, but I'm going to talk about this one because this is the one I actually gave you. So we talked about the testes right here. Inside of it, like I said, you can't see it. It's those seminiferous tubules. And on top of it is this epididymis right here. And again, the head, the body, and the tail. The tail is going to connect to the ductus or vas deferens, and that thing's going to travel way over here. And we're going to talk about what happens next. Okay? All right, so here's the vas deferens now. So we're going to be at this region right here and at this region right here. It's the same thing. All right, so what they do, sperm essentially just travels through them. They really have no major function other than just kind of a highway for sperm to travel through from the epididymis tail. Like I said, if you've ever heard of a vasectomy, that's just snipping of the vas deferens. They burn the ends off to make sure that no sperm can travel through there whatsoever. Men can get these reversed, but sometimes it's not always successful. But it is less invasive than getting your tubes tied, just because they can simply open the testicle and cut that vas deferens very fast. I think I heard it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to do that whole procedure. All right, so again, here's our vas deferens right here. All right, so the urethra. So far, we've just talked about that the males have a urethra, the females have a urethra. Bam, we're done. But there's actually 3 different sections of the urethra in males. You have the prostatic urethra, which is essentially just going to pass through this orange gland right here. It's kind of heart-shaped. It's called the prostate. So whenever men go to the doctor and they get their prostates checked, that is what they're getting checked right there. So it's just at the point where the urethra is going to pass through the prostate. The membranous urethra is just this section right here after the prostatic urethra. And then it's going to change into the penile urethra right here, which is the urethra that we always think of. That's the penile urethra that you're actually thinking of. The difference is this is where the sperm are going to pass through, and this is where the urine is going to pass through, okay? And they're going to meet in the penile urethra, okay? Not meet at the same time, but I mean, they're both going to go through there is what I mean. And like I said, carries both urine and sperm, but not at the same time. There's actually, a student actually described it really well the other day. She was saying that it's kind of like a door. We talked about valves and things like that. Well, we have sphincters here. It's called the bladder sphincter, and it's going to essentially close the door of the bladder to ensure that urine does not leak out when sperm's coming through. Okay, so here's more. So these are going to be accessory glands. Okay, so males are going to have several different glands that do different things, and we're going to talk about those now. We're going to start with the seminal vesicles, and these are essentially just going to create semen. That's where the name comes from, seminal vesicles. And that's going to be seen right here on your picture. So if you want to label that now, that's seminal vesicle. Excuse me, burped. And this is going to produce 60% of the fluid that mixes with sperm. So not all of it's going to come from here, but most of it. And we're going to talk about where that other 40% comes from here in a minute. Okay, so the seminal fluid from the seminal vesicles is going to contain different things in it. It's going to contain fructose. And when we talk about what is the function of fructose, it's a what? What is it? What it is? That's right, it's a sugar, okay? And what's the purpose of sugar? Let's think back. It's to give us energy. And sperm, if you can remember, they're going to have those little flagella, and they're going to have to move. And so they're going to need an energy source, just like when we are running a marathon, we need energy. Well, sperm do too. They're running a marathon through this whole system right here. And they're going to use fructose made by the seminal vesicles. They're also going to have something called prostaglandins in it, and that's going to help produce muscle contractions. It's going to move the sperm along, okay? And then fibrinogen, this is ultimately going to be in this fluid that's going to help sperm clot once it enters the female reproductive tract. Okay, so let me see. So seminal vesicle right here, and then they're going to go into this little region here called the ejaculatory duct. So it goes here. Here's the vas deferens, this whole long tube. It's going to go into the ejaculatory duct, and then that seminal fluid is going to be dumped out in this ejaculatory duct, and it's going to mix with the sperm. And so at this point, we can call it semen, okay? All right, and like I said, it's going to pick up sperm and mix it. An ejaculatory duct, it's going to mix sperm, and that's going to be at this region right here from the fluid made by the seminal vesicles right here. And we're going to pick up some more fluid along this way here in a moment. Okay, so now we're at the prostate. So we've gotten our fluid from the seminal vesicles, our fructose, so we have our energy, we have our muscle contractions now, and we have our clotting factor, our fibrinogen that this guy makes too. It has other things in it, but that's the main thing right there. The main thing is fructose. And it's going to go through this ejaculatory duct right here. So now we're going to be at the prostate. This organ right here, it's the one that was heart-shaped on the other side, the orange one. This is the prostate here. And it's also going to create secretions. And the secretions that it's going to make are mostly enzymes that activate sperm. Okay, so at this point, sperm are going to start becoming very active because it's getting ready to find an egg in the female. Okay, so seminal vesicle, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, and prostate. And now at this point, we're also in the prostatic urethra. There's other glands right here that are going to squirt out some juices. It's right here in the pink box. It's called the bulbourethral gland. It's kind of a bulb shape. That's how I always remembered it in school. So it's going to go through here, get activated. Bulbourethral gland's going to squirt out some fluid, and it's going to meet right here in the bulb of the penis, and it's kind of a bulb shape. So we got two bulbs going on here. Okay, and its function is it's going to produce a clear mucus. Sometimes we call that pre-ejaculate. So what we see there is secretions from the bulbourethral glands. That's what pre-ejaculate is. And again, this is all mixing with sperm. So we're getting a whole concoction here of different solutions that the sperm is floating in here. So this is where that other 40% is going to come from after the seminal fluid. All right, and the other purpose of these guys is to clean the urethra of any urine left over there, because we don't want that urine hurting the sperm or getting inside the female tract. So we want to clean the urethra. We want to cleanse it out. Another purpose of this fluid that this guy secretes, it's going to lubricate the penis for intercourse. So that's its other function there. All right, let's define semen. So we basically already did. We talked about all those fluids that are secreted by the different types of glands: the prostate, the bulbourethral, the seminal vesicle there. So it's just a milky white mixture of those secretions we talked about in the sperm. Okay, so secretions plus sperm equals semen. And then, like I said, it's comprised, is that a right word? Yeah, comprised of fructose that gives energy for the sperm. So semen is going to be basic, it's going to be alkaline, and it's going to neutralize the acidity in the vagina, because the vagina is a very acidic environment. And if sperm or semen were not alkaline, then the sperm would be damaged by the acidity and not be able to impregnate a woman. So we want to make sure it all evens out. Okay, so we're going to talk about some external anatomy of the male. So we have the scrotum, and it's just essentially some skin that surrounds the testicles. And its main job is to protect the testicles from temperature changes. And there's actually two muscles that we're going to discuss really quickly. It's going to be the dartos muscle, and that's this guy. You can kind of see it right here. And its purpose is to wrinkle the scrotum. And that's just to make sure that the temperature stays warm, okay? Because the sperm have to maintain a constant homeostasis, or else they're going to be deactivated. So that's going to wrinkle the testes. The second one is called the cremaster muscle, and that's going to be these guys right here. And what their job is, they're going to pull the testicles upward. So if it's too cold, they're going to go up higher to make sure that temperature stays at the right homeostatic level. Okay, so dartos wrinkles, cremaster is going to elevate. All right, let's talk about some penile anatomy here. So I think we all know this. I mean, this is like, what, 4th grade, learn about your body class, just around the corner type stuff. So the purpose of the penis is to deliver sperm into the female reproductive tract. That's pretty obvious, but there's some other structures we're going to talk about. So we have the shaft. That's essentially just this long portion right here. We have the glans penis. That's this enlarged tip right here. But in some people, well, in everybody at the beginning, they have something called a prepuce, and that's just the foreskin that covers the glans penis. So when people get circumcised, what they're getting removed is the foreskin of the prepuce. A lot of times, like I was telling y'all the other day, it's not very hygienic. So a lot of hospitals recommend that you get circumcised, or your child gets circumcised, because when you get older, bacteria can build up and cause urinary tract infections in the elderly and things like that. You have two different tissues in the penis that's going to fill with blood during sexual excitement. And the one that's going to fill with blood is called the corpus cavernosum. And it's going to be this on the sides right here. And I kind of remember that because if you look here, it's kind of like they have caverns. They have like little openings, I think of like inner space cavern. And all the people are going into the cavern. It's kind of like this. So blood's going to rush into these little caverns, and that's what's going to cause the penis to become erect. Okay, so here we go. So corpus cavernosum fills with blood and causes erection. There's another structure, some other tissues called the corpus sponginosum. And what that does, it's going to be this guy right here medially, and that's going to keep the urethral opening open, okay? Because we don't want the urethra to close when this guy fills with blood. That would be pointless because no semen would be able to get through the penis. So we want to keep that open right there by the corpus spongiosum. I think I totally misspelled that. Spongiosum, not sponginosum, but that sounds better to me anyway, but it is what it is. So spongiosum. All right, so here's the pathway. I just kind of made this slide just so you can see, kind of put it all together. So sperm is made in testes. We talked about that at the beginning here. Testes also make testosterone, endocrine wise. The next step, it's sent to the epididymis to mature. Okay, and 20 days later, it's going to go up the vas deferens and it's going to travel through that long, huge tube. It's going to join with fluid at the ejaculatory duct by the fluid from the seminal vesicle. And it's going to get its energy here in the form of fructose. At this point, we can now call it semen. It's going to go through all those 3 different sections of the urethra. It's going to cross the prostate and get activated here at the prostate with those enzymes. Because at this point, we're getting ready to deliver that sperm into the female. The fluid from the bulbourethral gland is going to mix with all this fun stuff right here. And it's going to produce that clear kind of fluid that's going to clean out the urethra and also provide lubrication. And then ejaculation is going to take place. And all of this is going to go out of the penile urethra into the female reproductive system. And like I said earlier, I think this was a question on your textbook questions the other day. It says, why do we call this the urogenital system for men? It's because the urine and semen both go through the same penile urethra. So it's kind of the urinary system and the reproductive system mixed up. Okay, and in women, it's very separate. And we're going to talk about female reproductive anatomy on Monday. So like I said earlier, you have a bladder sphincter or a door that's going to ensure that urine does not ever mix with semen. Okay, because we're trying to clean that up with the bulbourethral. We don't want any urine leaking in there. That could be detrimental for sperm health. Okay, and that is it. If you have any questions while you're taking your notes, just let a girl know.